But we don't have to use those biomes for the same purpose. No. We could use those biomes for specific farms. And this will be a good spot for us to set up our base. What up, my roomies, and welcome back to the technical guide to Minecraft. And today we're going to be starting a large project of the KiguCorp Storage Center. But in order to do that, we need to make a lot of small other farms in order to create the infrastructure to build this thing. So as you remember from a couple episodes ago, we made ourselves a wither skeleton farm. And as a result, we have a lot of bone blocks. These bone blocks could then be used to make bone meal, which will be able to power the automatic tree farm. And the tree in question that we're going to be using is a nether tree, or specifically a warped fungus tree. But as you can imagine, we don't actually have a lot of warped fungus. If you remember from the first couple of episodes, that I used up all my warped fungus in order to make this food farm, which has been more or less sustaining me this entire time. But without any warped fungus, I can't make any warped fungus trees. And so we're going to be making ourselves some small scale fungus farms in order to power the auto tree farm on the other end. See, one end is going to have bone meal, which we already tackled on the wither skeleton, and then the warped fungus is going to provide the fungus for the trees themselves. And by getting that, we'll be able to build the tree farm that we're going to be using in order to make all the chests that's necessary for this storage center. And so, welcome to KiguCorp, where safety is a concern. Now, to address our problem of warped fungus, we have ourselves a warped nylium. Now, when you bone meal a warped nylium, similar to how you bone meal a grass block, it creates plants. And every now and then, you create a warped fungus. We need as many warped fungi as we can get. And this is why we need a warped fungus, because when you bone meal a warped fungus, it becomes a nether tree, or in this case, a warped nether tree, which is going to be the primary tree we're going to be using for the auto tree farm. Now, how warped nylium grows its stuff. On the center of a 5x5 area, when you bone meal a warped nylium, it'll spread within this box. And as you can see, even though we put it on this spot, it spreads within this 5x5 area. And by doing so, we can get ourselves a bunch of warped fungi for the tree farm. Now, of course, there's a way to automate this by using a dispenser, because remember, when a dispenser has an item that can interact with the area, it'll interact with it, more or less. So over here we have a hopper, and this hopper is filled, well, was filled with a bunch of bone meal, which is put in more, that's going to feed this hopper line into this dispenser. And right now you can see that the platform of warped nylium doesn't have anything on it. So when we activate this dispenser, it'll shoot a bone meal into the center of this nylium platform. It'll shoot bone meal the same way that we do when we use bone meal on warped nylium. And as you can see, yet another warped fungus. However, if we were to do that, I mean, you wouldn't want to go and like manually dig up all these plants, do you? And so we have this. Because a warped nylium can be pushed by pistons, we can then use this to take out any plants that are on top of the warped nylium. So if we put this down, and that's not good enough for us, it'll get pushed and the item will break until finally we get ourselves a warped fungus. And so by utilizing the bone meal that we got from the wither skeleton farm, that's going to be feeding this dispenser full of bone meal, and in combination with pistons pushing the nylium back and forth, we can create an automated system whereby the platform of warped nylium will be able to get pushed back and forth, while at the same time we'll be able to power the dispenser, which will then inject bone meal into this platform of warped nylium and get us all the warped fungi that we will need for the farm. So just to put this to action, let's load this up with bone meal, turn on the system, and you'll see it in action. So as you can see, a lot of plant matter can be made with this farm. And so while it's not going to be entirely self-sufficient because you're going to lose bone meal over time, you can at least recoup the costs just using a basic composter array. By placing anything that we don't need, like warped roots or crimson fungi, you'll be able to recoup some, maybe not all, but some of the bone meal back to put back in the system. If you want to play with this farm yourself, there's going to be a schematic in the description below. And again, for those who want a block by block tutorial, please leave a comment and I'll get right to it. And with that, we'll be able to make ourselves a bunch of warped fungi for future projects. So let's head back to the technical guide world and get to it. Quick interruption. I noticed that only 12% of you are actually subscribed to this channel. Watching this long, I must be doing something right. So if you like this video, hit that like button and please subscribe to this channel. Any support helps and these videos take a bit long to make. Thank you so much and back to the video. All right, now that we got this farm fully built up, let's fill up this barrel down here with a bunch of bone meal. Where did I put my bone blocks? This is really like an insane amount of chests. I really need to get this like storage system going because this is getting a little ridiculous now. Because I've been looking through my chests for like 5 minutes now and I still can't find. Oh, there it is. So with these 3 bone blocks, we'll be able to fill an entire barrel's worth of storage just with bone meal. I am so delighted about the wither skeleton farm because this was always something I was worried about and now is no longer a worry. So in order to change it, all you gotta do is just go to your crafting table and change it down to bone meal. And as you can see, 1 stack of bone blocks will equate to 9 stacks of bone meal. Is just fill it up. All you gotta do now is just break it down into bone meal and then you could use it for the system. It's all really simple to use. And this is why we have a barrel down here. All you gotta do now is just load up this barrel full of bone meal and then you'll see that the system begins to fill itself with bone meal. Thus you don't have to really worry about this. You just put it in and let it do its own thing. Let's go ahead and turn this machine on and get ourselves, hopefully, a shulker box worth of warp fungi. Okay, and this farm used up all the bone meal from those 3 bone blocks, which by the way, amazing that 3 stacks of bone blocks can fill up an entire barrel of bone meal. But that's neither here nor there. And as you can see, we used all the extras that you can get from a warp fungus farm and just plonked it into a composter unit. Well, 2 of them, actually, so that we can get some return of bone meal. Obviously, it's not going to be a perfect 1-for-1 use of bone meal and you get 1 bone meal back, but at the very least, we can mitigate the amount of bone meal that we use by composting the ones that we're not using. And if we take a look in our shulker box, we're just shy of an entire shulker box worth of warp fungus, which is a little bit of a bummer. I mean, 63 out of 64. You couldn't just give me 1 more game. Oh, that's fine. Let's put this here, clean up a bit. And with that, we have all the warp fungus that we're going to need to be able to create ourselves a nether tree auto farm.